Every one of us is tasked with bringing the world to perfection. This week's Parsha reveals a secret to help us do just that. Sometimes when you're reading through the weekly Parsha, something jumps out at you. Maybe it's something you've never noticed before. Maybe it's something you've read 100 times, but it hits differently this time in the context of current events. Other times, like this week, it's not immediately clear why a phrase jumped out at you, and you need to really dig in. In the opening of Parsha Korach, you have Korach along with Datan and Aviram and 250 men of repute coming to challenge Moshe and Aaron's leadership. They say, all the community are holy, and Hashem is in their midst. Why then did you raise yourself above Hashem's congregation? On the surface, it's a valid point. Everyone stood at Mount Sinai. Everyone heard Hashem's voice. Why doesn't everyone have a voice in leading the Jewish people? Of course, what Korach really meant was, why can't he be in charge instead in place of Moshe? And the answer to that is clear. Moshe responds to Korach, telling him to come back in the morning, and Hashem will set the record straight as to who should be leading the people. Moshe then turns his attention to Datan and Aviram and invites them to come and talk it out. The response is particularly jarring. They say, "We will not come. Is it not enough that you brought us from a land flowing with milk and honey to have us die in the wilderness?" Why did I find that response particularly jarring? The phrase, land flowing with milk and honey, is one we've all heard 100 times. It's how Hashem refers to the land of Israel many times in the Torah. It's how Joshua and Caleb described the land of Israel in last week's Parsha. So reading it here, it's easy to pass over. But this phrase is being used differently here. It's not being used to refer to the land of Israel. Is it not enough that you brought us from the land flowing with milk and honey to have us die in the wilderness? This is an evolution of the phrase the people have leveled against Moshe over and over since leaving Egypt. They would often say, "You brought us out of the land of Egypt to die in the wilderness." But now, after that phrase has become somewhat of a rallying cry every time the people complain against Moshe, Datan and Aviram alter the phrase's language. They take Hashem's description of the land of Israel and insert it into their commonly used slogan. "You brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness" becomes, "You brought us out of the land flowing with milk and honey to die in the wilderness." Egypt becomes the land flowing with milk and honey. Why did this line jump out at me this year? I think it was the inversion of language. Taking holy language that speaks to the core of our connection to the land of Israel, language that permeates the songs we sang about Israel as kids. Taking that language and inverting it to be used as an attack against Moshe, an attack against us. Words matter, and we should take great care to choose our words carefully to convey ideas as accurately as possible. Here, Datan and Aviram seemingly chose their words carefully, but for a different goal. Their words were carefully chosen to cause maximum pain. Chaverim, my friends. 3,500 years later, and that same tactic is used against us to this very day. Look at the language used to criticize Israel. Words are no longer being used to accurately describe the situation. They are being used to invert reality and cause pain. Hamas invades Israel on October 7th with genocidal intent, but it's Israel's response that's being called genocide. Hamas operates out of schools, mosques, and hospitals, but it's Israel's that is accused of using human shields. Hamas fires missiles indiscriminately towards civilian populations, while Israel implements measures unheard of in urban combat to minimize civilian casualties, yet it is Israel that is accused of targeting civilians. Israeli Arabs have full equality under the law and have a higher standard of living than they would have in just about any other country in the Middle East, yet Israel is accused of apartheid. Israelis are called white European colonizers when Jews have never before been considered white. The majority of Israelis did not come from Europe, and Israel is in fact a shining example of decolonization. For too long, Israel and the Jewish world's response to this would be to correct the record, to properly define terms. We were rightly confident that the truth is on our side, and if only we get the truth out, the masses will see it. Sadly, that no longer holds true. In a world of sound bites and of TikTok, the truth is not enough. Being right is not enough. So my challenge to each of you this week is twofold. First, make sure you know the facts. Know why what Israel is doing is in no way genocide. Know why it is Hamas that is using human shields. Know what apartheid is and how it in no way applies to what's happening in Israel. Know that it is impossible for the Jews who are indigenous to Israel to be colonizing. Second, be loud. Don't just keep that information in your back pocket to be pulled out as a defensive mechanism against accusations leveled against Israel and against Jews. When Israel is accused of genocide, don't respond, well, actually, if you look at the definition of genocide, what Israel is doing doesn't meet all of the various criteria. While true and maybe a valid defense in a court of law, it doesn't work in the court of social media. Instead, go on the offensive. Hamas are the ones that have genocidal intent. October 7th was an act of attempted genocide. When Israel is accused of ethnic cleansing, go on the offensive and ask, why does the whole world just accept the idea that a hypothetical future Palestinian state would, of course, be Judenrein? Don't just be a defender of Israel, be a vocal supporter. Don't be afraid to call out the anti-Israel rhetoric for the hypocritical hate that it really is. Don't let the Datans and Avirams of the world take language and invert it against us. Instead, take Korach's accusation to heart. We are all holy, and Hashem is with all of us. Let's not be afraid to show the world that Israel and the Jewish people are in fact a light unto the nations. That is one thing we can learn from this week's Parashah. How will you step up this week to bring the world a little closer to perfection? Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisrael Chai.